hell that lonely nights are.
Hey folks, Darren here, Mr. Sandsman. Welcome to another 10-minute tier, and this time I'm going to be talking Scream. Something that I don't get much chance to talk about on the Slaughtered Lamb Movie Podcast, but since this is my own channel, I can talk the hell out of it. So here we go with a 10-minute ranking on the Scream franchise. So the tiers are: what's your favorite scary movie at the top in red? Movies don't create psychos, movies make psychos more creative in the second spot. I'll be right back in number 3. Fourth tier there is I'm feeling kind of woozy. And a fifth tier of move your fat tub of lard ass now. Obviously various different quotes from Scream movies. I'm going to start with Scream 3. Scream 3 was one of those movies that kind of ended it all for me with this franchise. I absolutely adored the first film. Second film was okay. And when 3 came along, it was nothing but an episode of at the time, I think I called it Friends with Knives. It was all very cliquey and Scooby-Doo, and there was some really bad decisions made in this film. I remember walking out of this movie on opening night feeling incredibly disappointed. My thoughts were kind of, haven't changed on it. I do think it is the weakest one in the franchise. And so I'm going to put it here. In the fourth section there, I'm feeling kind of woozy. Most people say that Scream is the most consistent franchise going. It has pretty much a thread running throughout, and there aren't really any bad movies in the Scream franchise to the level of some of the bad movies that you get in the Elm Street or the Halloween franchise. So I'm comfortable with it going in that fourth section there. Scream 4, I felt, personally, was a return to form. I really enjoyed the brutality of it. I thought it really got back to how things were in the original film. The story was a little bit kind of all over the place at times, but some of the kills in the movie, particularly Olivia's death, did really make this more interesting, I think. I wasn't too sure about the lens glare or flare that Wes Craven chose to use throughout this. It was kind of a huge distraction. I never really understood what he was going for there. And whilst it was a return to form, I didn't quite think it was as good as the first movie, but I did really enjoy this. It surprised me. So I'm going to put it in the second tier there. Movies don't create psychos, movies make psychos more creative. Scream 4. I liked it a lot. I really did. Next up is, where am I going to go for my next one? I'm going to go for Scream, the 2022 version of Scream. They took some big swings in this film, killing off a legacy character like Dewey, which was pretty emotional, I thought, was that sequence there. And it was a gamble, one that I thought for that particular movie really did pay off until you kind of find out who the killer is. And then it made it a little bit kind of inconceivable, I guess, his death. But I did appreciate what Radio Silence did to this franchise and how they made it look and feel as if Wes Craven had directed this movie. Mikey Madison, I thought, was good in this. I loved her comeuppance at the end, with her head getting set on fire in the kitchen there. And it was kind of the second film in a row, pretty much, that she'd been torched to death, because obviously she was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and got flamethrowered by Leonardo DiCaprio in that film. I enjoyed it. I thought it was, it was a credible return, and I'm going to put it there in the middle tier. I'll be right back. Scream 2 I'm going to have a look at next, and Scream 2 was one of those films that when it first came out, I wasn't a huge fan. I felt they used up all the nods and winks in the first movie to the genre, and it kind of felt a little bit stale very quickly, did Scream 2. Having said that, it does have one of the best set pieces in the franchise, which is the scene in the car where Sydney's in the car with, I think her name's Hallie, and they have to try and get out of the car without waking Ghostface up. And I think that's one of the more tense moments in the franchise. And watching it recently when we covered this on the Slaughtered Lamb Movie Podcast, I actually found a lot more respect for this movie, having watched it again. I do think it's possibly the second best movie in the franchise. But how do I place that? I think I'm going to place it at the side of Scream 4. I think it's better than Scream 4. I think both movies are really good, but I think Scream 2 does have the edge on it. And the opening sequence was pretty fun as well in the cinema until Scary Movie went and parodied it and totally ruined it. But yeah, Scream 2, I'm going to put in movies don't create psychos, movies make psychos more creative. Scream from, what year would it have been? 2023, Scream 6. Everything wore a bit thin at this point for me. I think that, I think it was rushed, was this particular movie. It had some nice ideas. I loved the scene with the ladder between the two apartments. I thought that was really creative. But I think I missed the legacy cast members. Just having Courtney Cox in there wasn't enough for me, and the fact that she survived after what she went through I thought was pretty ridiculous. And then as the movie progressed and you saw how much damage was inflicted to the rest of the cast, they really did jump the shark with this one, and I ended up really kind of not enjoying the film by the time it ended. I'm going to put this alongside Scream 3, I think. I'm feeling kind of woozy. It was very watchable, but ultimately it was bordering on the ridiculous. Next, the original Scream, and that's going straight to the top. This came along at the right time for me. I was a huge fan of the slashers in the 80s, growing up in the video nasty period in the UK. It was a tough time. It was difficult to get hold of certain movies. And so as the 80s faded out and the 90s came in, we had a bit of a horror drought for a while. There wasn't much in the way of slashers that were around. And having always been a fan of the slasher subgenre, it was such a surprise to get a movie like Scream. I mean, when I first saw it, I hadn't really heard about it. You know, this was at the dawn of the internet, so not many people had the internet. It had been out in America at the time when I saw it. I remember sitting down to watch it and being a huge Halloween fan. Obviously, this movie's a huge love letter to Halloween, and so I instantly adored this movie. I think it's the strongest in the franchise. I think the opening scene is genius, and I also think all the little nods and winks to Halloween and the slasher subgenre throughout are really nicely done. Wes Craven had already given us a Nightmare on Elm Street at this time, and for him to kind of start the groundwork for another slasher franchise, he did such a great job. After seeing this movie in the cinemas, I really wanted to watch it at home, and so my first introduction to Scream, watching it in home, wasn't on VHS. It was actually on Laserdisc. So I purchased this amazing Laserdisc of Scream that came out and really had a lot of fun. I got a lot of watches out of this movie. It was one of my favorite horror films of the 90s for a long time. It really was. I think over the years it has kind of dated with me, but you know, you can't deny what Wes Craven has done for horror and for the slasher subgenre. So it's going at the top for me. What's your favorite scary movie? Scream was a real treat when it came out, and yeah, I was definitely a huge fan. What I want to do is, I want to do something here. I want to do a little prediction. Scream 7 is obviously on the horizon. It's about a year away, but we're getting a lot of buzz and news about it at the moment with certain characters coming back, certain characters which have been killed off in past entries. We already have it confirmed that Scott Foley, who was the killer in part 3, is coming back. We also have it confirmed that Matthew Lillard is coming back as well. I tend to lean more on the side that this might be some sort of meta-type sequel. They didn't say that he was coming back as Stu Macher. They just said that he's signed on to the new Scream film. And I really do wonder whether the whole thing's going to be done in the vein of Wes Craven's New Nightmare. I'm not sure about that, but it's been playing on my mind recently, particularly when they announced that I think it's Joel McHale has signed on to play Sidney's husband. Now, I wonder whether there's a couple of theories here. Now, Patrick Dempsey, who played her partner, he may not be coming back simply because, I don't know, maybe he's in Thanksgiving too. Who knows? But also, if this was done in a kind of meta New Nightmare way, then that Nev Campbell would have a different husband in real life, as it were. So that's kind of been playing on my mind. But, you know, I have a lot of faith in Kevin Williamson. He's the guy that kind of laid the groundwork for this franchise in the first place. And, you know, he's the brains behind a lot of these kind of slasher franchises that we've had over the years. So he's had a lot of time to think about this and play around with it. So I'm kind of quietly confident that he could deliver something that's substantial as a sequel. I know that he's only ever directed one film in the past, but I have faith in his ability to deliver something that we can all be fairly pleased with. And so I'm going to make a prediction that Scream 7 will be up here somewhere. I think it's going to be good. Okay, so that's the final ranking. In the first tier, what's your favorite scary movie? I have the original Scream. Second tier, movies don't create psychos, movies make psychos more creative. I have Scream 4, Scream 2, and potentially Scream 7. Just a prediction. I'll Be Right Back is the third tier, which has Scream from 2022. I'm feeling kind of woozy has Scream 3 and Scream 6, which are my least favorite in the franchise. And nobody actually made it into Move Your Fat Tub of Lard Arse Now. So there wasn't really much call for that category. I do these things on the fly. I don't plan them out ahead. You see this live as it's coming off the top of my head. I may make one change here. I'm looking at Scream 4 and thinking maybe it isn't quite as good as Scream 2. So I'm going to move Scream 4 down a tier to I'll Be Right Back in the third level. Okay, there we go. All right, folks, that was my ranking. Comment below and let me know what your ranking is. How would you rank these movies? Let me know down below and let's have a chat about it. Next up, I'm going to be talking Romero, and I'm also planning to do a live, possibly this Saturday coming. So I'll let you know more information about that as I get it. So we'll get a juicy topic on the go, and maybe I'll have a guest as well. So thanks again, guys. Thanks for all the support. If you haven't liked or subscribed, please do consider it. And don't forget to check out TSL Movie Podcast as well, where we do a lot more live episodes, myself and my co-host Frank Riker. He also has his own channel as well called Frankly Speaking, so you might want to check that out. All the links are down below, and I shall speak to you soon. Cheers.
And tell